The current era offers unprecedented opportunities for women wrestlers in North America, with promotions like WWE, AEW, Impact, and more providing a national platform for female athletes to shine. However, the increased talent pool can make it challenging for those outside the Four Horsewomen to distinguish themselves. Fortunately, one woman, Rhea Ripley, has found the formula for standing out in a way that sets her apart from any other women's wrestling figure since the days of Chyna. At just 26 years old, Rhea Ripley has taken the wrestling world by storm. How did she reach this point in her career? Join us today as we take a deep dive into her entire career journey so far in the Rhea Ripley story. Childhood journey. Born as Demi Bennett on October 11, 1996, in Adelaide, South Australia, Rhea Ripley developed a love for various sports during her upbringing. While soccer, karate, and swimming were significant passions during her school years, nothing could quite match the excitement she felt when she tuned in to watch WWE. For her, the grandeur and exceptional athletic prowess required to become a WWE star were in a league of their own. Despite her proficiency in other areas, she had already decided during her teenage years that her future lay in the world of professional wrestling. It might come as a surprise to some, but her primary source of inspiration in the industry wasn't the more obvious choices like Chyna or Beth Phoenix. Rather, it was The Miz who truly captured her attention during her youth. The Miz's success, particularly in headlining WrestleMania despite being disliked by many hardcore fans, resonated deeply with her. Given the challenges she faced in breaking into the industry, it's perhaps not surprising that a young native of Adelaide found inspiration in his journey. Wrestling journey. Demi Bennett, or Rhea Ripley as she's known in the wrestling world, faced the challenge of breaking into the thriving indie scene in Australia at the start of the 2010s. Despite the hurdles, her unwavering determination and commitment to honing her wrestling skills with each bout she took part in eventually led to a steady gig with Riot City Wrestling in her hometown of Adelaide. During her time there, she made the most of the opportunity, becoming a two-time RCW Women's Champion over the course of 4 years. Simultaneously, she ventured into promotions like New Horizon Pro Wrestling and Melbourne City Wrestling, where she faced more established names in the industry such as Mercedes Martinez and Saraya Knight, better known as AEW's Serpentico's mother. However, her most memorable opponents in the Australian indie scene weren't just limited to those names. Beyond those experiences, she also shared the ring multiple times with Kiwi women's performer Evie, now recognized as Dakota Kai, and arguably her greatest rival, Toni Storm. These two top Australian women's talents were rising stars at the same time and were determined to prove themselves as the best, which was evident in their intense showdowns throughout the mid-2010s. At a certain point, their paths diverged as Storm shifted her focus towards her work in Japan, particularly with Stardom, where she held the Red Belt Championship. Meanwhile, Bennett continued to persevere on the Australian indie circuit, patiently waiting for the opportunity she knew would eventually come her way through her unwavering hard work. First opportunity. The long-awaited opportunity finally arrived for Rhea Ripley in the summer of 2017 when she was announced as one of the newest female signings for WWE. The reason behind this wave of women's signings stemmed from the transformative impact of the Four Horsewomen, who had changed the perception of women in the WWE main roster. Triple H and William Regal conceived the idea to foster a new generation of talent by launching the inaugural Mae Young Classic, an all-women's knockout tournament. This competition aimed to provide a platform for the best independent wrestling talent from around the world to showcase their skills on a larger stage. Recognizing that this was her significant break, Demi Bennett, now known as Rhea Ripley, made the move to the United States and joined NXT to prepare for her first-round match. In her debut, Ripley convincingly defeated her first-round opponent, Miranda Salinas. However, she faced a familiar adversary, Dakota Kai, in the second round and was defeated. Rhea Ripley, resilient as ever, refused to let a single defeat deter her for too long. She picked herself up, resumed her training, and set her sights on the following year's Mae Young Classic, where her goal was to emerge as the champion. During her second attempt in the tournament, Ripley significantly improved her performance, advancing all the way to the semifinals. However, she ultimately found herself unable to overcome the formidable Io Shirai. The NXT Star is born. Recognizing the need for a new path to stardom, Ripley made a strategic move to the UK, where she emerged as a standout performer on the newly launched NXT UK brand. This decision proved to be highly beneficial for her in the long run. She wasted no time in making her presence felt by defeating her old rival, Toni Storm, securing not only the inaugural NXT UK Women's Championship but also the distinction of being the first female Australian-born champion in WWE history. This significant achievement firmly established Ripley as the dominant force in the women's division of WWE's British branch. Over the subsequent months, Ripley fearlessly took on all challengers, dispatching them with ease. Whether it was Isla Dawn, Diana Purrazzo, Dakota Kai, or any other opponent, they all found themselves on the receiving end of Ripley's dominance. However, like all good things, her remarkable title run had to come to an end eventually. After an impressive 139 days as champion, Ripley's reign concluded at NXT TakeOver, Blackpool, where she was defeated by none other than Toni Storm. Their rivalry seemed like an eternal clash, akin to Batman and the Joker, and had Ripley remained in the UK for an extended period, they might have engaged in countless rematches. Nevertheless, for Ripley, the championship no longer held the same value, and she set her sights on a new challenge, the WWE's main roster at the Royal Rumble match in January 2019. Ripley initially made a brief cameo appearance on the main roster, quickly eliminating 3 opponents, which left a lasting impression and hinted at her potential in the future. However, this wasn't her permanent transition to the main roster, it was merely a teaser of things to come. After igniting fans' anticipation for her future, Ripley returned to NXT UK for a few more months, engaging in a feud with, and eventually forming a partnership with, Scottish star Piper Niven. The next significant chapter in Ripley's journey occurred when she moved up to the main roster of NXT in Florida in August. Her debut made a tremendous impact as she attacked the reigning NXT Women's Champion at the time, Shayna Baszler. This move carried immense weight because, in 2019, Baszler was in the midst of an incredibly dominant title reign that seemed almost unbeatable. Having already defeated Kairi Sane the previous year, Baszler's reign was on the verge of surpassing 400 days, and there appeared to be no challengers left. Rhea Ripley was the last hope to unseat the Queen of Spades. For her WWE debut, Ripley transitioned into a babyface character, portraying a heroic figure coming to rescue the division, rather than the villainous bully she had previously been. This change in alignment led her to form an alliance with fellow former NXT UK star Tegan Knox, as a side story alongside her pursuit of the title. Ripley and Knox took on Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, while in real life, Ripley began a relationship with fellow Australian performer and current House of Black member, Buddy Murphy. In November of that year, Ripley played a prominent role when she joined Triple H in leading an NXT invasion of the main roster in the lead-up to Survivor Series. The game entrusted her with the task of demonstrating why the black and gold brand was renowned for having the best women's division in the Western world at the time. On the November 22 episode of SmackDown, Rhea Ripley achieved a significant victory by defeating both Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair in a triple threat match. While this was a remarkable moment for the former NXT UK Women's Champion, her primary focus was still on unresolved matters at Full Sail University. She promptly returned there, just in time for TakeOver, War Games the following night. In less than 24 hours after impressing the main roster, Ripley demonstrated her dominance on her home turf by leading her team to victory against Team Baszler. Notably, she pinned the NXT Women's Champion, Shayna Baszler, securing the win. With a victory over the champion, it was evident that a showdown between Ripley and Baszler was on the horizon. Before that showdown materialized, Ripley made one more appearance on the main roster at Survivor Series on November 24. In a packed weekend, she led Team NXT to victory over Team Raw and Team SmackDown. The most significant moment of her career to date arrived on the December 18 episode of the Black and Gold brand when she headlined the show by challenging the Queen of Spades for the top Women's Championship. Indeed, after an impressive reign of 416 days, the Queen of Spades, Shayna Baszler, met her end in a spectacular showdown that marked the conclusion of her dominant era. Rhea Ripley engaged in a fierce battle that closed out the show, ultimately pinning Baszler. She was hoisted onto the shoulders of the entire babyface roster, her newly won championship proudly draped around her waist. While she had conquered the mountaintop, there was no time for her to let up, as she was now entrusted with a leading role. The Adelaide native had to maintain her momentum at full throttle. This journey led her to rekindle an old rivalry once more at Worlds Collide on January 25. This event pitted the stars of NXT against the stars of NXT UK, and Rhea Ripley faced off against Toni Storm, with the US version of the women's title on the line. The challenge for the champion lay in the fact that, until this point, she had never defeated her fellow Australian. Storm capitalized on this fact in her pre-match promos, aiming to get into her opponent's head. However, in the end, at Worlds Collide, after a battle that raged for just over 10 minutes, it was the champion who emerged victorious, finally conquering the long-standing challenge from her past. The big question that remained was, who's next? Well, as it turned out, it was none other than Charlotte Flair, who vividly remembered the victory Rhea Ripley had achieved over her and Sasha Banks a few months earlier. Flair, after winning the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble, surprised everyone by choosing to challenge not the Raw or SmackDown Women's Champion but the NXT Women's Champion. This move presented a unique opportunity as, for the first time ever, the NXT Women's Championship would be defended at WrestleMania. Unfortunately, when WrestleMania arrived, it was under extraordinary circumstances. The event took place at the Empty Performance Center due to outside factors affecting the world. To make matters worse, Rhea Ripley suffered a loss. While one might have expected a rematch, it didn't happen. Visa issues forced Ripley to return to Australia temporarily, and the slow pace of progress due to the state of the world meant she couldn't come back to the United States until May 6, 2020. By that time, a new challenger for the Queen's crown had emerged in the form of Io Shirai. Instead of challenging Flair one-on-one at the June 7 takeover, in Your House, Ripley found herself in a triple threat match against both Flair and the Genius of the Sky. Rhea Ripley gave her all in this match, but in the end, it was Io Shirai who emerged with the title around her waist. It became evident that her time in the developmental brand was naturally coming to an end. After participating in another Women's War Games match in November and engaging in a brief feud with Raquel Gonzalez at the start of 2021, the Nightmare was ready for new challenges. Main roster journey. Finally, she made the permanent transition to the main roster on the March 22 episode of Raw in that year. She appeared and issued a challenge to Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania 37. Exercising her past demons from the previous year, Rhea Ripley managed to overcome the Empress of Tomorrow on the grandest stage and capture the top prize on the red brand, firmly establishing herself as a key player for the future. While she had secured a significant victory at WrestleMania, she still hadn't managed to defeat the Queen, Charlotte Flair. Therefore, her first major title defense the following month at WrestleMania Backlash held great significance. This match pitted the champion against Asuka and Charlotte Flair, and Rhea emerged victorious, solidifying her status as a top women's star on Raw. However, at Money in the Bank on July 18, Charlotte Flair challenged her once more, and this time, to the dismay of the Australian star, Flair managed to defeat her for the championship, ending Rhea's reign at 98 days. Losing the championship didn't keep the Nightmare down for long. After a failed attempt to regain the Raw Women's title at SummerSlam during a triple threat match with Flair and Nikki ASH, Ripley discovered common ground with the Scottish almost superhero. They both had spent significant time on the indie wrestling scene before making their way to WWE. They decided to form a tag team and set their sights on the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. With their combined efforts, they earned a shot at these titles, facing Natalya and Tamina on the September 20 episode of Raw. They emerged victorious, beginning a 63-day reign with their interbrand titles. Regrettably, this run also ended in heartbreak when they lost the titles to Carmella and Queen Zelina in January 2022. Nikki ASH turned on her partner and joined the heel side, leaving Rhea in need of a new ally. She began appearing with Liv Morgan, and they challenged for the women's tag team titles at WrestleMania 38. When they couldn't secure the victory, it was Rhea Ripley's turn to change allegiances. She attacked her new partner and embraced a full-blown heel persona, marking her first time as a heel since her days on NXT UK. This shift came at a crucial juncture for the Australian wrestler. After a strong start on the main roster in 2021, she felt her momentum stalling and grew increasingly frustrated with her position in the card. The Judgment Day journey. However, at WrestleMania Backlash on May 8, her career took an exciting turn when she played a pivotal role in helping Edge defeat AJ Styles, marking her official entry into the Judgment Day faction after the Rated R superstar returned from retirement in 2020. Focusing on elevating younger talent became a personal mission for Rhea Ripley. She began mentoring Damian Priest early in 2022, and while they made a strong duo, it wasn't until the former Raw Women's Champion joined their ranks that they fully evolved into the top heel act everyone envisioned. The heel side. At this point, Rhea also underwent a transformation in her appearance to better reflect her darker alignment. Although she had been an edgy figure before, she intensified her persona, becoming WWE's resident dominator of the women's division. Even when Edge was removed from the Judgment Day faction and Finn Balor took the helm as the new leader, Rhea Ripley remained unfazed. In her view, she was the true power behind the faction, and this became increasingly evident throughout 2022. She played a significant role in recruiting Dominic Mysterio away from his family and into the heel faction. Initially, Dominic rejected their offers and stayed by his father's side. However, on September 3 Rhodes' clash at the Castle, after months of persuasion, he finally relented and switched to the other side to be with Rhea. What followed was one of the most entertaining storylines the company had seen in years. The relationship between Rhea and Dominic became ambiguous, often resembling a master-servant dynamic rather than a typical partnership. Dominic's character became far more engaging after years as a babyface, and while he deserved credit for this, a significant part of what made it work was Rhea's presence by his side. With Dominic firmly established, Rhea redirected her focus on becoming the top player in the women's division. She achieved this by defeating every opponent put in her path over the past few months. After winning the 2023 Women's Royal Rumble from the #1 spot, Rhea Ripley went on to defeat Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, marking the defining moment of her career thus far. Since then, she has been at the pinnacle of the wrestling world, exemplified by being the top pick on Night 2 of the WWE Draft. The possibilities are boundless for the Eradicator, and she may even follow in the footsteps of legends like Chyna and venture into the men's division, setting her sights on the Intercontinental Championship. At just 26 years old, she is arguably the best talent on the roster, with her prime years still ahead of her.